Hey, this is Jackie Miller, your host of Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. I have two incredible women on this episode. Dr. Chrisitne Cocchiola, who is a pioneer doing groundbreaking work in raising awareness about coercive control, in addition to the co-author of their new book, Amy Polacko, who is an award-winning journalist and also a divorce coach. They have come together to write an incredible book that every woman should read. Their book, Framed, will be available October 1st, but it is available now for pre-sale. Please see the show notes for information on how you can order this book. Go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble. This is a must read for everyone. To quote Dr. Ramani about the book Framed, she says, "This book will be a wake-up call, taking the concept of coercive control and giving it a face and a name." So please welcome Dr. Chrisitne Cocchiola and Amy Polacko. Listen in on this really important episode. All right. Hello, Dr. Chrisitne Cocchiola and Amy Polacko. Thank you so much for coming on Out of Crazy Town, your guide to divorcing a narcissist.
Thanks for having us.
So glad that you guys are here. I am very excited, audience. This is a very special episode. These two amazing women have come together to write a book that every woman needs, and it is called Framed: Women in the Family Court Underworld. All right. For those of you watching this on the YouTube, I forwarded a post on Instagram today for this audience. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I am super excited. We're going to talk about this book, why they wrote it, everything behind it. Every woman in this audience needs to read this book. But first, let me just remind everybody a little bit about who you guys are, and then we'll get into why you wrote this book. But Dr. Chrisitne Cocchiola, you're officially the guest I've had on the most times at 3 now.
Well, it's an honor.
Yes. All right. All right. So just so you know, yes, I bestow that honor on you. Thank you so much. But so the audience may know, well, I'm sure they know a lot about you, but you have been a social justice advocate since the age of 19. You were domestic abuse and sexual assault crisis counselor, child welfare advocate, board member of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And one of the biggest things that you've done lately is actively support codifying coercive control as the foundation of domestic abuse, which so many of us are grateful for. And I've been hearing really some awesome stories lately about successes women are having in the court. I'm so excited about. You're a trauma trained therapist, a researcher, and educator. I could go on, but I also really want people to know, just in case they don't, that you're the creator of the Protective Parenting Program and so many other programs for women victims, for coaches, for attorneys, all of that. We talked a little bit about that on the last episode you were on. Everyone, please go to coercivecontrolconsulting.com for more information on all of that. So thank you and welcome, Dr. Cocchiola.
Thank you.
And Amy Polacko, I'm so excited to have you on. We have not met before. I have heard lots about you, and everybody needs to know that you are an award-winning journalist, investigative reporter, and divorce coach who have survived a nightmare. And that's one thing I know that obviously the people listening, this audience, that we all share. We have this passion for helping other women that have been through this horrible journey. And you have just worked on so many amazing projects. A Pulitzer Prize winning reporting team that covered the TWA Flight 800. And you have work that's been featured in the Huffington Post, Miss Magazine, the Washington Post, Newsweek, NBC News, the Independent Observer. So many things that you have done in your career. And that's why it makes it amazing that you two have come together to write this book, to be a resource for women. And everyone, you can go to freedomwarrior.info to find out more about Amy Polacko. So welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having us. Yes, we are a good team, Dr. C and I. And you were talking about healing, and writing and getting back to some journalistic work on this issue has been part of my healing process. So I think, for both of us, we have been through a lot, and we just could not look away. We have to go back and reach our hand out to all the other women who are still in this situation.
Absolutely. They need so much help and so much support. And so now they have additional help and support in the book that you guys have come together to write. And so you guys, let's just start out by talking about, like, what was the driving force for you in writing, coming together and write this book?
Amy, I'll let you answer. Go ahead.
Well, I think in our daily work helping clients, we hear these stories and we lean on each other sometimes, right? To say, wow, we thought we've heard it all, but listen to how horrible this one is. And, our hearts break. And obviously, we're doing everything we can professionally to help our clients. But we always have this feeling that if people knew what was actually going on behind courtroom doors in family court, they would be appalled. They would be enraged. They would care enough to get involved. So we have 22 stories of women around the world, and our objective is really twofold. I mean, we want to validate what they're going through and let them know they're not alone. But we also want to educate those who maybe are in a bad marriage. Maybe they're just dating and are noticing some things or not sure who to pick as their forever mate. And actually, our goal is threefold, because obviously we want to change what's going on in family court as well and shine such a bright light on this that we create a grassroots movement for change. That's our dream.
That's amazing. And again, obviously there is the validation that you really need, and just you're not alone. And so many of these stories will have a thread of similarity woven throughout them. And so just seeing these bizarre things that can happen in the lives of these women, and just, when you read, oh my gosh, someone has somewhat of a similar story, you're like, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not, I hate to say it, but right. So many women think that I'm so stupid. How did I fall for this? What happened to me? And so on that note, Dr. C, like, who would you say this book specifically is written for?
I think it's written for everyone, so this is the story, so when people say, I was so stupid, how could this happen to me? I mean, I'll remind you, Jackie, that I started this work at the age of 19. I worked in child welfare. I saw domestic abuse every single day. I educate on this topic every single semester to my college social work students, yet I didn't know I was a victim. So I feel like, it happened to me. I mean, the reality is it can. Even the most astute of us can miss the signs. We don't even realize it's happening to us. Abusers do such a good job of stripping away our autonomy. I was on the call earlier today with someone who stayed at home for years and was with an abuser. And the reality is that is another way to ensure that the victim doesn't have ability to branch out. I was teaching every semester. I was a social justice advocate teaching on child sexual abuse, domestic abuse, you name it, trauma. I was talking about trauma well before it was part of our vernacular. And the reality is that it happened to me. So I think it's just so important for people to forgive themselves and to understand, give themselves grace. This isn't about you. This is about someone who chose you. You probably know I have a podcast called Perfect Prey, because I think victims are perfect prey. I think it's important to highlight what, Dr. Ramani says, that she wrote our foreword for our book. And we're so honored that she believed in us so much and believed in these stories that she was willing to write the foreword for us. And as you know, she has a New York Times bestseller recently that came out, It's Not You. Again, this conversation that it's not you, that these are abusers. And she wrote for us, this book will be a wake-up call, taking the concept of coercive control and giving it a face and a name. And as Amy said, we want not only women to be educated on this, but we want, if you're a dad and you have a daughter who's getting married, I mean, how about just really ensuring that people have the information, we call it, as Amy said, the abuser's playbook down here, right? That letting people really just understand, this guy seems good, but let's just be cautious here and ensure that we know what the playbook could possibly be. And of course, it's not every man, but certainly there are a lot of abusers out there who are men. And education is just so vital to this process.
It absolutely is. And, I had a guest on not that long ago who was the CEO of the One Love organization. And we were talking about the youth, right? And how we protect them. And as a mother of two daughters, I had one that started in a relationship and started noticing some isolation. And sure enough, there were problems there. And so you're right. You just can't educate enough people, whether you're a parent and you have a teen that you're watching them get in a relationship, or you have a father, right, with a daughter getting married, like in your example. So I see your point. This book is for everyone. That makes perfect sense.
Jack, when you said you know, you're learning about how they met, right? And all the love bombing. To me, that is one of the most fascinating parts of these stories. Of course, we get into the family court dysfunction and gender inequities and injustice, but we said to our contributors, tell us how you met. How did he court you? How did you end up getting married? And for many, you know, hindsight's always 20/20 for many of us, right? We can look back and something looks like a red flag now, but at the time it didn't. And so I think it's important for all young women. We have many colleagues we know who say, I want copies of this book to give to my daughters, because you're not really thinking in that moment about the ramifications of giving up your income and staying home, for example, or, you know, moving across the country with a mate, you know, all of these things, giving up your career for his, you know, you will see the results of those decisions through these women's eyes.
That's amazing. And so I wanted to ask you that your stories then sort of encompass all different areas in timeline in the journeys. Is that right?
I would say our stories have kind of like a beginning, how you met, like Amy said, and then kind of when you have this light bulb, something seems wrong, something seems off, and then the unfortunate, as Dr. Evan Stark states, the escape, which is really never an escape, because the post-separation abuse is really the intensification of the coercive control, right? And so then all that follows after, whether it's the legal abuse, the financial abuse, the weaponization of children, the stories detail those experiences for victims. And, you know, sadly, the stories don't have good endings. We always say this is not an easy read, but it is a must read. And it's just unfortunate that even I was just talking to one of my moms who contributed to the book yesterday, and she was telling me the details of what's happened just in the past couple of months since the book has gone to publication. And it's just so sad. It doesn't end. It just the end is not the end is never in sight.
No, and you know, that's such a good point. It gives me goosebumps and it makes me sad, but at the same time, I'm happy that I'm able to be there for women, as you two are as well. I've had clients for 3 years, and actually some longer now that I think about it, going on 4 years. And it's just, you know, I don't mean to discourage women. I want you to know, you know, this, it's so great that we have, you know, support out there now and our numbers are growing. But yeah, to your point, it's so sad how long this can go on. And the post-separation abuse is just an intensifying, of that abuse. And so who are these women? Or to your, you know, you commented you had just talked to a mom. Who are these women that entrusted their stories to you? Where did they come from?
Well, they come from all over the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And, you know, many of them are professional women. They're, you know, I love to bust this myth, right? That domestic abuse victims are the down and out, desperate women that people like to typify. That's not the case at all. And I think people will see that through these stories. We'd love to read you a couple examples of them, if that's okay.
Oh my goodness, please take it away.
Okay, and this goes to our point we were making about how you meet your partner, right? And how the story unfolds. This one is Michelle's story. She's from the United States, and her chapter is called The Abuser's Playbook, which is something we recommend all women know. And they have a game plan. These guys, through marriage, through divorce, they weaponize family court. And if you don't know what the game is, you're in trouble. So she says, "My name is Michelle and I want a divorce. These are the very words that initiated my living hell. 3 years ago, I was free of debt, naive and trusting. Now, with over $300,000 in legal fees and deep in personal debt, I'm acutely aware of what can happen in divorce. Let me make something clear. You don't have free will in these coercively controlling narcissistic relationships. You are being controlled and dominated by someone in all aspects of your life. And it's by someone who's telling you they love you. It's coercive control. The confusion they create is powerful. I actually thought my husband Jeremy was the safe option. It was weird, though, that he didn't tell me that he had been married before until we were engaged and moved together across the country. Then something happened at our wedding that really hurt my feelings, but he didn't care and took the side of his family. Looking back now, that should have been a huge red flag. And even though it would have been embarrassing, I should have walked away. We moved constantly for Jeremy's job, so mine was second priority, and our life was a roller coaster ride. Sometimes he was super nice, and other times he'd yell at me and call me names. We had several children, so it wasn't easy to leave. He isolated me from family and limited my friendship. But one day I visited a friend out of town and told her how he woke the kids up in the middle of the night to tell them, quote, "Your mother's a whore and a bitch," end quote. I'll never forget the look on my friend's face when hearing this and her adamant warning, "You've got to get out of there." It was a mirror of my reality that I had carefully hidden for years.
Oh, thank you. How chilling and powerful. And just want to say thank you, because if that's just one example of what you guys are bringing to women, to give them just the validation and the support to know that there are lots of people out there suffering this horrible journey. Oh my goodness. There's so many parts of that story. I'm not even sure where to start. There's so many things I think that we discover, as working in this, sort of industry and helping this community. The waking the children up in the middle of the night. It's so bizarre how you start to learn different patterns that are woven, throughout so many of these coercive controllers and abusers. And that is one that I've heard time and time again. And you guys as well, right? Like it's so interesting. But those are the kinds of things I think are so powerful, so that when a woman reads this, they're like, oh, so I'm not the only one where he wakes everybody up in the middle of the night, right? And screams at all of us. And I just heard a similar story the other day. You guys, would agree with that, correct?
I think absolutely. And I think sometimes if it doesn't happen a lot, there's this disassociation, right? Victims become trauma bonded to their abusers and they disassociate from it. And they want to, the thing about victims and, is that we hold on to the good. We really do. It's part of our personality traits. It's why abusers choose us, as I say, perfect prey, right? And so they choose us because we see the glass is half full most of the time. We work really hard to fix things. We're givers in relationships, not takers. And so what happens is that boundary line just continues to get pushed. Maybe it happened once last year, but this year it happened 3 times. And even next year, maybe it happened 6 times. Like whatever the incident is, if it's a pattern and it's happened again and then again, we really have to take a step back and ask ourselves. And that's what the Abuser's Playbook is really about. And Amy and I are going to be doing workshops actually so that we can educate people on the Abuser's Playbook. And basically their ticket in is going to be, purchase the book and come on into our workshop so that we can teach you more about the Abuser's Playbook. We'll be doing that in August and again in September and certainly probably in October also, just because we want to ensure that people have the tools that again, can give them, sometimes a toolbox is awesome. Sometimes the toolbox doesn't work, but honestly, not having the toolbox is part of the problem. And so if we can just have that toolbox, it's so important. And I think also to highlight, Amy read these stories are startling. There's no question about it. And again, we say it's a must read, but we also, Amy and I have included at the end of every single story, our notes. And what we do is we really highlight what actually occurred in the relationship that would have been a red flag, or again, the Abuser's Playbook, but also we have a whole reference section. We are referencing resources that validate the experiences of victims through empirical data that shows over and over again that what is occurring is actually as the victim relays. And then we have a call to action section. So we really hope this book is, again, almost like a toolbox. It's part of that toolbox, to include with anything that we can share and that you obviously share, that people in this industry are sharing with victims and survivors.
That is amazing. So, okay. So, and so that's basically the structure of the book. So you read the story and then you guys really break it down. You analyze it, you explain it to people. That is absolutely fantastic. And I just listening to that and listening to you talk about it, basically it's like the intermittent abuse, right? So there's the abuse and then we hold on to that one little nugget, that one moment when there's the kindness. And I know I've had Dr. Nadine Macaluso on who talks a lot about trauma bonds. And when I was learning about that, I was remembering back to a time where I would get that one nugget of happipiness, encouragement, kindness. And I would literally feel a chemical rush of relief that was like almost like a high. And so here, you get one moment of kindness out of days, weeks, or months of verbal emotional abuse. But you don't know what's happening. And you're right. You hold on to that and you're like, okay, there it is. Things can be good again. So to have you guys explain what is happening. Oh my gosh, if I could have had that, 10 years ago, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we do hope people gift this book to everyone they know because, so Amy and I are just so passionate about the idea that if you just have the information, there's a good chance you might actually see the red flags and be able to remove yourself more readily. It's rather frightening, the ability that abusers have to keep us entangled in their web.
And to your point, Jackie, this contributor, Michelle, goes on in her story to explain that that kind of love bombing again and the cycle of abuse continues even after they're planning to get divorced. So she actually falls for it when he keeps inviting her over to discuss things civilly. And guess what happens when he does that? He has her arrested. He has her arrested. And sometimes the police believe her. She, at one point, is being carted off by a police officer, and her husband is waving from the window, smiling and laughing. So he would bait her to come, let's talk about this and keep this calm for the kids. And then he would accuse her of abusing him and call 911. So I think I talk to my coaching clients about this all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about, is that they start to wonder, should I follow through with the divorce, right? Because he is trying to keep her off her game and being nice here and there. And it's human to just want it all to go away. I mean, that's why it takes on average 7 times for a victim to leave an abuser. We get lured back. I know I was, I even had a divorce proceeding and went back, so it happens.
Yep. And thank you for articulating that, because I was just speaking in a support group the other day, and this woman was recounting, and I'm watching all their notes in their support group, and just these horrible things that's happening in their post-separation abuse. And then she had him served with some stuff, and she was what I call brace for impact, right? So when you actually make a move to stand up for yourself, you better brace for impact, because, you're defying them in a way and they're not going to, stand for it. So she was so shocked when he called her and was extremely nice, and let's work on this and let's work this out and let's be amicable. And she said, what's happening? And I said, oh, it's not good. Please don't fall for it, to your point. And so again, this book is going to be so powerful for women to understand. And I'm going to recommend it to the support group, everyone there, just so you guys know. But again, there's a similar story, and there's no such thing as kindness, only manipulation at that point, right?
Absolutely. But I think, to Dr. Cocchiola's point about perfect prey, they go for people who believe in the good in humanity. I often say that's the only mistake we've made, right? And so, they're banking on it. They're banking that we're going to go to marriage counselor after marriage counselor. We're not going to throw in the towel on a marriage. We're going to look at our kids and feel this angst about breaking up their household, which we know they're fine with one healthy parent. But, so they're counting on that, and they're using our good qualities against us.
Absolutely. Perfect prey. That's right. That's why I love the name of your podcast. You couldn't have nailed that better. So you guys, do you have any other stories you want to share?
Sure, I could share one. This is from Faith in Canada. The title is Research Means Nothing. My attorney, like most, was more worried about his reputation than the safety and welfare of my youngest child. I retained an expert from the United States who recommended that I have full decision-making in sole parenting until my ex acknowledged the abuse and attended a treatment program. The expert included reference to famous studies such as the Saunders study and the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, highlighting flaws in the family law process. My lawyer, days after he filed my expert report, told me that he wouldn't be disappointed if the other side had the report kicked out because he was worried about losing his credibility with the court. In a case management conference shortly after my expert report was filed, it was apparent that the judge was irritated by my expert report, stating, I don't understand this report. I have never seen one like this before and have never heard of the Saunders study or ACEs. In this conference via phone, I told my lawyer it was imperative that he reference the abuse. He literally stuttered the word abuse when he told the judge my concerns. Even after this experience, I still naively believed that the legal process was fair and objective, and there would be no way any reasonable judge could dispute my evidence at trial. However, leading up to a settlement conference, my legal team told me there was a risk that I could lose custody of my son if I insisted on raising the abuse. as it would come across as being obsessed and alienating my ex, the abuser. I was unwilling to be silent and told my lawyer that it was a risk I would take. In the settlement conference with a different judge, my lawyer attempted to refer to the abuse, but she yelled at him, "Attorney X, you know better than to use that word in my courtroom without evidence," even though we had a copy of a CPS report substantiating physical and emotional abuse. When my lawyer drew her attention to the report, she said, "Grabbing a child and leaving marks hardly qualifies as abuse. It may be bad parenting at best, but it isn't abuse." My lawyer then asked, "Would choking be considered abuse?" She rolled her eyes and said, "Well, I guess choking would be a little different." The judge was cold toward me and constantly interrupted when I was speaking. A couple weeks later, my lawyer told me that the judge was likely annoyed by my expert report and impatient with me because she had seen my financials and saw that I made as much income as her. I knew instantly I had to do whatever I could do to get out of this legal situation and avoid trial, as there was a significant risk that the judge would be biased against me for no other reason than speaking my truth.
You got, I just have the chills from both of your stories. So do you guys think, and do you have any plans for somehow getting these books into the hands of judges or professionals?
That is our hope. I mean, we're asking any of your listeners if they want to reach out to us we have a website, www.narcfreepress.com. And if they get on our email list and they actually have a list of the GALs in their state and they want to give a blurb to their GALs, we need help in this process, as you could imagine. So we love people's ideas, but what we really need is people to have an idea and then take the idea themselves and go ahead and get the information out there. We would love for this to be on every attorney's desk. I speak regularly with law firms, and I go to colleges that teach law students. And the issue is that I don't think people think it's as problematic as it is. I mean, a couple of years ago, I spoke at a law school and I had like 30 people in the room. Last year I had about 7 people in the room. It's not something that people see as hugely problematic, and lawyers don't go to school to get into family court. I mean, everyone needs to know this. Every listener needs to understand that to become a family court judge, you do not have to take a course in domestic abuse. And so how is it that we have people doing this work who, frankly, when you think about it, this is like for them the bottom of the totem pole. Nobody says, "Oh, please let me be a family court judge. I just want to be one." They get appointed and they get this position and they're not necessarily pleased about it. And they see every single case that is problematic as high conflict, when research affirms over and over again that abusers are drawn towards conflict and that this is not high conflict. Dr. Ramani was speaking at a huge conference with many mental health professionals, and she said, "Dr. C has taught me to never use the word high conflict again, that anytime it is high conflict, we have to assume there's one person who is an abuser." So that's really the narrative that needs to be permeating. And how do we get it into everyone's hands? We need a sea of people helping us do this work, right, Amy? And we appreciate you helping us do this work too, Jackie.
Absolutely. And I think we both truly believe that it's going to take a grassroots groundswell, like other social justice movements, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, something like that across our country, around the world, to enact change. Right now, let's be honest, there are a lot of people making a lot of money in this system as it is. And what's their motivation to change? Why should they go take Dr. Cocchiola's amazing courses and learn more? Why should they become trauma informed? Why should they read this book? I think we've got to shine such a light on it. And we hope that people become enraged when they read this. We do. We're not going to lie to you. This isn't going to be a fun read, but we hope that you're so moved by the end of the book that you get to the call to action and you take action, because we know all these little things do add up. We know many people who have been through the court system who are already planning to buy 20, 30 copies and going to their local courthouse and giving it to every attorney they've ever dealt with. Yes, but we need, as she said, all the help we can get on this.
That's awesome. And that's such a good point, because so many people do have so many great ideas, but yeah, go do it then. And to that point, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well, I do hear a lot of women that say, when I get a little farther into this, or this is over, or I'm a little more, stable, I want to do something. And it's like, okay, this is it. Not everyone needs to become a divorce coach. Not everyone, everybody has a different path or something they're comfortable with. But yes, take this book framed and go do something with it. Buy it for someone else, give it to another professional, show up at a courthouse and hand them out. Whatever your idea is, this is a tool, a ready-made tool to hand to people that can help educate, not just for the victims, but for the professionals. So I love that idea and I love that comment. And that's something I will definitely keep in mind as well.
And I don't know if you're aware, but Tina Swithin did do our epilogue also. So we are just beyond honored to have Tina and Dr. Ramani and Lisa Fontes, who is an amazing expert witness who is changing. She is training actually people who go through my clinical training. She is training them to be expert witnesses. So we have more expert witnesses out there who understand coercive control. And she is a trailblazer. She has been approved in 17 states and she is changing lives through her expert testimony. So again, I think this takes so many people doing this work and actually recognizing, instead of saying, oh, well, I don't know anybody who experienced that, ask yourself, because the reality is we all know someone who's being abused.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I tell a new audience or person or someone I haven't met before what I do, they're like, oh, my friend, oh, my neighbor, oh, so-and-so could have used you. I wish I knew you existed. So you're absolutely right. Everybody knows something or someone. It's rampant throughout society. And we now just have more education. We can label or, name things what they are. And this book is going to help do that. That is amazing, ladies. So I know that we are waiting for a date that people can start to purchase the book. And I just like to educate people on how this whole process works. So I'm just going to say it. Okay. I'm going to be telling the audience at the beginning of this episode when the date is, that they can start buying the book. You guys, you have to start buying it before it's actually available. They've heard this from me before. And I did not know until you had sent me the email, Dr. C, that Barnes and Noble actually is. Would you explain that whole thing? Because let's just tell people how it works between Amazon, Barnes and Noble, when they pre-order the book. How does this work? I want them to do it as soon as they can.
I'm going to defer to Amy because she says it so well. So Amy, you are the boss on this, please.
Well, our book will be available for pre-order on different outlets, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a few different bookstores. Will be in some local bookstores as well, where we're doing book events. But in order for us to have a chance to make a bestseller list, we need to have sales in different places, not just all Amazon. And this is something strategic we've learned from other authors who've imparted their advice to us. So if you care about this movement and you want this book to be elevated, and I believe when it's elevated, it is showing society at large, you know what? This is an important issue. It's not down on the totem pole anymore. There are enough people. If we have thousands and thousands of people buying this book, it's striking a nerve, right? It's not just, a book with 10 sales, and we are confident of that. The response we've gotten, we have hundreds and hundreds of people in our book launch team, which we encourage to join on Facebook. But if you could buy from different sellers and not just Amazon, that would help us. And if you know of an organization who is having an event, maybe it's the Women's Center, Crisis Center in your community. Hey, maybe they would like a bulk order. Maybe they would like to have us as a speaker, either virtually or in person, and share the book with their network.
That's amazing. And so for all the support groups out there that people are in, yes, buy more than one book. Buy more than one book. You're going to run into someone who needs it, or you're going to, offer it to a support group where people can pass it around, whatever it is. Have book clubs. I'm a huge fan. Have a book club. Everyone read the book together. Order the book, you'll get the pre-order date. You guys will find out the launch date soon, or, when it's available. Order the book and have a meeting with your local group and share it there, and everyone can discuss the stories. And especially with you guys, the experts, breaking it down so that people truly can digest this information to the max and understand how we can all use it, not just to get educated, but to help each other, help ourselves. That sounds amazing. And then last comment, could you guys explain, I believe you said Goodreads is the best place to leave reviews?
Yes. So if people are able to leave reviews on Goodreads, then that actually also helps to elevate the book and get it out there to more people. And that's super important. And I did just want to mention, we do have a trigger warning in the book because, these stories can be overwhelming. We've given it to people and they've told us they've gotten through and then had to kind of put it aside a little bit. And that's okay. We understand that this is a process that can be very overwhelming for people. And again, as we say on the back cover, this could be your mother, it could be your sister, it could be your daughter, it could be, anyone that you know that could be suffering in this way. And if you are a man and you're listening right now, we hope that you care enough about issues that impact women in particular that you would want to share this book with others.
Absolutely. And so leave reviews on Goodreads, leave them everywhere. Repost this stuff on Instagram. I know if you go on mine at Out of Crazy Town, I reposted your story today. Let's just get the word out. Do everything you can. It's a click and a swipe. Do it. Darn it. So this is very, very important stuff. I cannot thank you ladies enough. Is there anything else you want to share with this audience that we haven't touched on yet?
I think if you want to join our launch group, we have a Facebook group called Framed, and it's for people who are interested in helping us get the word out all over the place. So please feel free to join our Facebook group.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So they just go to Facebook, search Framed in the groups, right? Is that okay? Okay.
Yes,
I like to be
cover of the book. Yep.
Awesome. So again, for this audience, you guys will see their information everywhere in the show notes. I will have links to all of the things that Dr. C and Amy have talked about today. So that'll be easy to click on whatever platform you listen to this on, or if you're watching on YouTube. So thank you so much, you guys. I'm so excited for this. And I just thank you for all the work that you're doing and sharing these stories. And thank you to the women out there. If you're listening and you were a contributor to this, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Just having you guys read these stories, I got the chills multiple times. And so I certainly understand the trigger warning as well, because this is deeply emotional stuff, but it's very validating and it's wonderful work. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I hope to have you both on soon. And Amy, I'd love to have you back on to tell your story just on your own, because again, the more stories we can tell and the more we can validate people and your, I want to hear your journey and all the other good work that you're doing. So I'd love to have you back on as well. All right. Take care, ladies. And I hope to speak with both of you again soon.